Turnout could be a key factor in the second round of the French presidential election as Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen go head-to-head.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken visits Kyiv today, with no sign of de-escalation in fighting in Ukraine's eastern provinces.
Turnout could be a key factor in the second round of the French presidential election. At midday, the Interior Ministry reported it was 26.41%, slightly up on the first round. The two candidates cast their votes in the Pas-de-Calais, but in very different places. Fans jostled for handshakes and selfies in Le Touquet, a genteel coastal resort where Emmanuel Macron and his wife cast their votes. If he succeeds, the centrist will be the first president in 20 years to win a second term. In the former coal mining town of Hénin-Beaumont, his opponent was greeted by supporters chanting her name. Gritty industrial towns are Marine Le Pen's heartland, but she's perceived to have softened her tone and closed the gap by winning over a broader cross-section of voters in the 2022 race for the Élysée Palace. Socialist Jean-Luc Mélenchon, third in the first round, shuns Le Pen but hasn't overtly backed Macron. Policies and people dividing French voters.
With COVID and with the Ukrainian crisis, the price is going up. It does make you think about the real needs and above all, who can bring it a bit more luck and evolution in our lives.
For me it's important. I am not for either of them, but I think that we need to come and vote for change, even if the two candidates are, well, for me, they are not my main choice.
I think that the abstention is a problem in France, and it's been the case for a long time. And what's a pity is that it's not resolved with each election. I'm going to vote while being aware that there are things that will have to change, particularly in terms of the voting system and how the population is represented at the top.
The abstention rates makes me extremely angry. I'm wondering whether voting shouldn't be made compulsory, so that democracy is effective and everyone takes on their responsibilities, even when you are not necessarily very enthusiastic about one of the candidates.
Slovenians are casting their ballots in a parliamentary election that's expected to be a tight race between the ruling right-wing populist party of Prime Minister Janez Janša and a newly formed opposition made out of Greens and Liberals. About 1.7 million voters will choose from an array of parties, running for seats in the politically divided small European nation. Janša became Prime Minister just over 2 years ago and has pushed the country to the right since taking over. To be frank, I'm very disappointed about what has been happening before the elections, so I hope that when this is gone by, this gets better, so I don't have to watch them insulting each other. Actually, it's the first time I'm voting. I don't know. I believe it's every citizen's duty. Janša's main opposition is US-educated former business executive Robert Golob, advocating for a green energy transition and sustainable development.
Ahead of the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit to Kyiv today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky held a crowded press conference in a Kyiv metro station, where he was quick to criticize the UN Secretary-General for visiting Moscow before his own capital. He told reporters that any snap referendum organized by Russia in the occupied regions of Donetsk or Luhansk would put an end to peace negotiations. In a follow-up video posted on Facebook, the Ukrainian president gave an account of the latest Russian attack on Odessa. Zelensky says that today Russia launched another missile attack on Odessa. As of now, 8 people are dead, with 18 wounded. These are ordinary, peaceful people. Among those was a 3-month-old baby girl. Zelensky asked how could she have been a threat to Russia, and says it seems like killing children was becoming interwoven in Russia's national psyche. Russia later confirmed the attack on the city. Kyiv, for its part, said 2 Russian generals had been killed on the Kherson front. According to the US-based Institute for the Study of War, Russia appears to be deploying more troops in the east of the country, preparing in particular for a massive offensive in the Donbas provinces. The standoff in Mariupol remains uncertain. Ukraine claims that another attempt to evacuate civilians sheltering in the Azovstal steel plant has been halted. For the moment, the steelworks remains in Kyiv's hands, but Russian forces continue its siege with relentless pressure. Japanese Coast Guards confirmed suddenly that 10 people have died along its northern coast following the sinking of a tourist boat. Rescue helicopters had found 9 of the 26 missing people after Coast Guards were alerted when strayed passengers sent an SOS call on Saturday. Rough sea conditions, strong winds and cold temperatures had indicated to authorities that survival was unlikely.
Known for his rusty voice and unruly hair, veteran rock singer Arno has died from cancer at the age of 72. Born in the Flemish coastal town of Ostend in 1949, Arno was a national icon in Belgium. He'd announced in February last year that he was suffering from pancreatic cancer, but in a recent interview he thanked life for a happy time.
As Orthodox Christians celebrated Easter this weekend, Russian President Vladimir Putin was in attendance for a special ceremony at Moscow's Cathedral of Christ the Saviour. This year's Easter celebrations are a little bit more subdued in Russia. While many are happy to embrace the traditions, like pastries and receiving holy water, some are using it as a time to reflect on global events. This woman says that she is praying for peace and a bright future. She wants all wars to stop, to stay alive, for the people to be happy. Today is like a ray of light, because hope never dies. But hope is a mere desolation for those in the village of Lukashivka in northern Ukraine, where there will be no Easter celebrations. Their house of worship is all but destroyed, a wreck of shattered brick and blackened stone. One local told us that the church was built in 1913. They always had very beautiful church services, but now they don't know how it will be this year. Amid the rubble of her home, a Ukrainian grandmother bakes an Orthodox Easter cake in a village near Chernihiv. Olena Koptil and 12 others have spent the last month sheltering from Russian attacks in the basement of her home. And some are more fortunate to be celebrating Easter away from the fighting. Families who fled their homes west for Lviv are preparing an Easter basket for the servicemen protecting Ukraine. It also hopes to give Ukrainians a slice of normality.
Around 450 Siberian fox cubs have been bred and released into the wild in the last 20 years in Norway. A breeding program was initiated back in 2003, when there were probably no more than 50 Arctic foxes left in the wild in Finland, Sweden and Norway combined. Now new cubs are transported and released in the mountains of Troms, an area where historically a lot of foxes lived.
The area we are going to is an area where it used to be mountain foxes. There are plenty of old mountain fox dens, but it has been empty for many years. Now we're releasing foxes, hoping they'll establish a new tribe here, hopefully the start of a new era.
The number of foxes has increased slowly since the start of the program. Today the population counts with around 300 animals in Norway. But the situation is still serious. These foxes are still listed as under threat of becoming extinct here.
Historically, we've had over-exploitation, unregulated hunting, and the fur was highly demanded, so it was protected already in 1930, but the fox population has struggled in coming back.
The total number of Arctic foxes in the 3 Scandinavian countries is estimated at a little less of 500 individuals. Last year, 54 litters were registered, the second largest number since the start of the breeding program in Norway.
Now we will deposit some urine, and it's urine from the same foxes we have in these crates, to make them feel a little bit more at home.
To maximize their post-release survival, supplementary feeding stations and artificial dens are deployed near release sites. To date, captive-bred foxes have been introduced into 9 different populations across Norway.